Et we are back for another BRUNCH. You Sunday rendezvous with hockey coach Coach FRENCHY directly for the beautiful country of Thailand on the greatest Sunday, June 11, 2023. And we have again, they are back in the house, both of them directly from Toronto and from Ottawa. Mr. ENORTAP and Marko Larabi is in the house.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Hockey Nation.
Glad to having both of you with us, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back, everybody, in the house. Today, guys, a lot of news about the Montreal Canadiens, and I'm going to have something special the next 3-4 minutes. So we're going to have a lot of conversation. It was a busy week for the Montreal Canadiens with its fun news like Caufield, and then the combine and the press conference of Ken Hughes. And we're going to go right there. Hold on. I just want to add something else here, see if you don't mind. And if you go get there, everybody's can you hear me still?
Oh yeah,
we can hear you.
You sound great.
All right, sound good. So I just like my my internet drop here. So anyhow, we have a few people in the chat. If you don't mind, I'm going to welcome everybody very quickly, and then we're going to start the show very fast. We'll be about 65 minutes here. First of all, we have a super chat at the beginning. Without knowing this, ladies and gentlemen, we have Mr. Ross Stubbington. Here we go. Ross Stubbington back in the house. He did it again. Ross Stubbington, directly from Ontario, is with us tonight. Thanks so much for the great super chat on this one. No, we don't have no hype on this profile. I apologize for that one. So, in our time, we do the hype all the time anyway, so we'll be fine on that one. So, don't worry about that. So, would be great. Ross, thanks so much. Hopefully, you're doing well. Ross, big fans of the Boston Bruins. Big supporter of the Hockey National Show. Thanks, Ross, to be with us this morning. Of course, we have Mr. Luciano Graziano is in the house, followed by Claude Richard, Hugh Neighbord, and Mr. Marko Larabi on Ottawa. Unfortunately, Marko is moving, but still, he's going to be around. Of course, we have Willie Snyder from Denver is in the house. Welcome back. And the chef, Luciano, followed by Real Deal. No Deal is in the house. One other people in the house. Thanks so much to be a part of the show. Ladies and gentlemen, I have something for you. First of all, we're going to see what we're going to talk about today, guys. We're going to talk about the Montreal Canadiens, the NHL news, and around. There are a lot of action in the NHL this week. The Stanley Cup Final 2023. We're going to talk about game number 4 yesterday. Very interesting game. They may be the most exciting game, in my opinion, during the playoff 2023. The NHL Draft is right there right now. We're going to talk about this. This is episode number 36, by the way. But not done, guys. I want to let you know because, every Sunday we have something new. And today, the BRUNCH right there in the middle of the ice au centre de la glace de Montreal Canadiens at the Bell Center. You have everything right there. The Turbine, a meal of the Thailand subject with watermelon. You have everything you want. The wine is in the middle of that. And this is produced by our chef Luciano Graziano. So be ready. If you want to order, it's time to get up. The Luciano will be ready for you. So it's a buffet this morning. So you can go set up and listening in our tab at the same time. That'd be great. And then don't forget, I have a new video today. The cost living under $1,000 in Pattaya in 2023. If you want to watching this, that'd be awesome. That wouldn't be a problem. If you remember, last week, it was the Canadian Hungry Man brunch. So you can order this. It's still on the menu for the following week. So you can get those food if you want to get there. No problem. I know Marko is ready to jumping on the meal already. So we appreciate everybody.
I can't believe I missed the Hungry Man brunch last week. Man, I was jealous when I saw that. I was like,
yeah, absolutely about that. Would be interesting if we're going to have next week. We have something special next week. If we are live, first of all is the dad is a father day for next week. So we don't know we're going to be live or not, but would be interesting to see that. Otherwise, Mr. ENORTAP, are you ready to rock and roll today?
Hey, we're always ready, Coach. Always awesome. Ready.
And Marko, you are the Canadian new and update. Have a question for you.
To go, Coach.
What happening 30 years ago?
Canadians won the Stanley Cup. No?
The Montreal Canadiens rode to the Stanley Cup, ladies and gentlemen. And I prepared something special, guys. I think we take a couple of 2-3 minutes, enjoy because I will remember a couple of great memories. I did this, and then my heart started to beat too much. I said, oh, calm down a little bit, right? Because I remember what I was in 1993. So let's start in that way, guys, and let's see what happening.
Started to get nervous that day. I just think we got to call something here.
A stick measurement has been called. It's the stick of Marty McSorley.
It's a 2-minute penalty to LA if it's illegal, and it's a 2-minute penalty to Montreal if it's fair. And Marty McSorley, if he uses an illegal stick, which he did.
With McSorley in the penalty
To describe how this team does it, John.
It's just, I don't want to say it's a fluke because I think we worked awful hard for it, but I don't think that's a record that'll ever be beat.
30 years ago, 1993, and after the emotion again, you remember that night, at the night when they won the Stanley Cup, the Montreal Canadiens 30 years ago. And I have a question for you guys. What do you remember the most that year, 1993? Specific players, specific thing, and we would like to sharing for you. Of course, it's the 30 years happening June 9, and I just want to memory that. So let's start with ENORTAP, by the way.
Yeah, there were a few, Coach. For me, obviously, the stick measurement, as we saw there, that was unprecedented. Wouldn't happen today, obviously. They got caught with the illegal stick, even though it was used by many players. But what used to happen was the transfer of the legal and illegal stick had to be done by the trainer. So that wasn't done. They caught it. It's a technicality, but it served their purposes. And how can we forget to this date the 11 overtime victories that they've gotten that series? And it all started with the Quebec series, right? Going down 2-0 and then starting to ring together the wins. It was a great run. Great run.
Marco?
Yeah. Well, the first thing watching that video is I realized how much I missed Dick Irvin. Man, I love that guy. His voice is just so awesome. So it's really good to hear his voice again. And there's a gathering of the clan. Like I love the way that he used to call games. So for me, that was a very special time. You know, I'm a little younger than you guys, so I did see the '86 Cup, but I was very young. I was like, I think 11 years old. So I was, you know, a young adult when in '93. You know, like still a teenager, but so it was a very special time. For me, what I remember for sure is that Quebec series. I remember just how bad Hextall looked in that series. Like that was such a interesting move for the Nordiques. But some of the goals, like you see some of the goals that I think it's Muller, you know, like just right through the legs. Like yeah, he was pretty bad. But I remember, you know, Patrick Waugh, I think he hurt his shoulder after game 2, had to get it frozen, came back. Rasico was in there for a while, which when Rasico was in there, you knew that was not good news.
Red light.
Yeah, red light Rasico. But yeah, like, you know, the thing I remember the most, I think, is, you know, how some of those lesser, you know, kind of like role players kind of really came through. Like I remember Paul DiPietro, Gilbert Zion, and like players like that were like just massive goals. John Leclerc was like a train out there. Yeah, so you know, I kind of remember all the winning goals in overtime. You know, it was just such an overall team effort. You know, like there's not really one player that didn't really contribute at some point. There's players that came in and out. You know, even like, you know, players like Kevin Haller came in and stuff like that. So very, very exciting time. You know, like I always lie to people and say, oh yeah, you know, I wish the cup would come back to Canada, but in a way, and deep in my heart, I kind of like that Montreal is the last team to have won the cup in Canada. And I hope that the Habs will be the next team to win the cup. I like it when the Canadian teams get to the final, but like in the past, when Calgary got to the final, Edmonton got to the final, I kind of found myself rooting against them, to be honest, because I kind of like the fact that Montreal is the last team to have won. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that, for sure. I think at that moment, Quebec, it was 2-0 Quebec after 2 games. I think Montreal came back after that to win that series, if I can recall it about that. But when I watched those videos today, like Lucien talk about, you know, we missed those years. And for me, it's the transformation 2 years after that with Jean-Raoul, Mario Tremblay. And this is the last time when the line at the center of Montreal Canadiens was amazing, like Danforth, Turgeon. You never have those kind of players after that. And that was the sadness behind. You see Jacques Demers behind the bench. That was something was touched my heart today to watching this. And then, you know, so it was a great moment to remember. Go to make a video special for this a little bit longer, 6-7 minutes. Will be out the next couple of days, and then that thing will be tomorrow. And of course, so I just want to share it with you for the 30 years of the happening long time ago. And you know, I still remember I was not at the place, but I was outside on the street at that evening, and then I stayed there, and then I think I come back home 3 days after that, and then Paris gave me a couple of money on my pocket, Paris on the St. Catherine, but there's a subject for another time on that one over there. So Zev Lekev is in the house, and then we have an Rabinap, a long strider is another one in the house. Thanks so much, everybody. Don't forget, guys, to click on the likes. We'll be live here for another 45 minutes to 50 minutes for sure. And of course, we have a busy week for the Montreal Canadiens, and this is a subject. I'm flying, guys. I have a lot of subject for you guys, so I want to hear from you. First of all, Marko, talk about a little bit more about Cole Caufield, contract 8 years, a little bit at 7 point, blah, 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 blah. And then the AAV, and then what you think about that negotiation and what you feel about Cole Caufield and the Montreal Canadiens.
Well, Coach, we talked about this many times over the last year. And if you guys remember, like what I was focused on was, you know, we heard Hugo and Hughes in particular talk about what it was like when he represented Bergeron and how, you know, as an agent, he was always obviously advising him to, you know, how could we get the most money and everything else. And he was impressed about how Bergeron was so committed to winning. He took a lesser number and, you know, and he wanted to kind of build that same structure in Montreal. So, you know, the whole time, you know, I was hoping that Hughes was going to be able to implant those ideas and that attitude and that point of view with all of his players. And, to me, what this really signifies is that Caufield gets it. Caufield is a team player. Caufield is someone that wants to be in Montreal. He wants to leave enough money on the table so that, Hughes can go out and fill out a team around him and Suzuki. So to me, this is the best possible outcome we could have hoped for. So 8 years, I think it's the right number. There's going to be people that are concerned. Like I heard people saying, oh, but he's so injury prone. Like he's had one injury. Like I wouldn't say he's injury prone. Yeah, like of course it's always a risk. There's always a risk, but I don't think Caufield is injury prone. He's actually pretty elusive. The reason that he got knocked out, he got that one hit that really hurt him is there was a bit of a screen in front of him. He didn't really see the guy coming. I think it was against Phoenix. But overall, he's pretty aware out there on the ice, right? So I think for Caufield, it's a smart move because he saw what can happen, when you get injured. And so why take the risk, right? Like you have a dance partner, just grab their hand and here we go. 8 years of Cole Caufield. We have a really nice structure in place. One thing to note is that, one thing that Hughes said that was fascinating is that it's not that they'll never sign a player or have a player that makes more than Suzuki. It's just that Caufield was like Suzuki in the sense where they were both coming off their entry-level contract, right? So I wouldn't, for people who think that it's impossible that we'll ever sign someone over what Suzuki makes, I don't think that's true. But I think it would be hard for someone to come off their ELC and make the same amount. So maybe in the future they'll sign if it's the right free agent. Maybe they'll make a bit more. But I just want to make clear that people understand the difference between setting up that internal cap, but it's more for their own players, not necessarily for free agents.
Yep. Sorry about that. ENORTAP.
Yeah, Marco, what a concept, eh? Take a little bit less than what some other players have demanded on other teams in the past. Where have we seen this model before? As I mentioned, Boston's been adherent to it for many years, and they remain, a strong team year in and year out. To me, it totally makes sense. Instead of trying to make $11 million and then trying to chase the cup somewhere else because you can't win it with that team, allow your team to develop, allow your team to build, allow your GMs to go after some more free agents when the time is right so that you can put together the best possible team and then go for the cup with the team that you're at. It's a concept that I think has been lost over the years in the I won't say in the NHL, but in sports altogether. You find a lot of players just chase the money. And we saw in this case here that wasn't the case, as Marco so eloquently put. The thing I like about it as well is I think Montreal as well cooperated with Caufield. If you look at his contract and the way it's broken up, it's very front-loaded. His first 3 years with the signing bonuses, he's making close to $10 million. And as the years diminish at the end, there's less and less teams that are on his no trade clause. So that makes total sense. If for whatever reason this contract goes bad after 6 years, knock on wood, you could still offload the contract.
Doesn't his no trade team, doesn't the amount of teams go up towards the end of isn't it the opposite?
No, it goes down. No, it goes down. I think he starts at 16 and then it goes to 10 and then 6 by the time it's his 7th year. So it gives the team the flexibility to deal them off if they had to. But
I missed that part. Wow, great.
Yeah, absolutely about this in our tap about the contract of Cole Caufield. We have a question for Willie Snyder. And now we welcome back Roger Delaney. Thank you to be with us this morning. Don't forget to click on the likes. For the panel, who do you think is the best pairing on the top two line for the Montreal Canadiens?
Okay, so he wants us to do what our top 6 lines would be for next year. Well, I think, guys, we drafted Slafkovsky to eventually, hopefully, play with Caufield and Suzuki, right? So I think that's probably where they try to slot him in at some point next year. That's certainly where I would try to slot him in. So I would do Caufield with Suzuki and Slafkovsky to start off. Really give him a chance to play with some good players and really give him a legitimate chance to produce a little bit more. And then from there, I would probably do, now you're getting the second line, it depends who's going to be back, right? But so I'd say Doc is going to be centering your second line. You've got Josh Anderson there. And then on the left wing, maybe you start off with RHP to start off the year, just to kind of see if you can continue the momentum from last year. That's kind of what my top 6 would be to start off the year, barring any kind of signings or anything like that.
ENORTAP?
I think you have to look at the center position and really build around that. Once you've established Suzuki and Doc, perhaps as your number 1 and 2, or maybe something happens, like we pick up a very solid centerman this year, or through a trade or through free agency, which I don't think that'll be the case this year, but later on. And you build around that, and you have to test out different wingers until you find the right combination with them. Now, I like them, the chemistry with Caufield and Suzuki. That totally makes sense to keep them together. But the other ones, I would try and just gradually build on it and find the right combinations. It's hard to say, because I predict in a couple years, this lineup will probably be 50 to 60% of what it is today. I think there'll be a lot of changes that'll be made. So it's hard. It's hard to predict. For next year. Yeah, we're not going to see huge differences in the top 2 lines, anyways. I think the bottom 2, perhaps. I think the defensive core is pretty much set, with an exception of maybe 1 or 2. And we got to see if there will be 1 or 2 positions available for prospects to take that spot. But we'll see if they can live up to the opportunity.
Yeah, you can realize by your comments, both of you, we're still missing one winger on the top 6 for the Montreal Canadiens. So we have to figure out something there, because they cannot start with what they have. I don't think so, Marko. They will put Slafkovsky with Caufield, and I see more Slafkovsky with Doc and Anderson or something like that. Again, we're missing one player in the top 6, so that's the most important thing. You're welcome. We'll go to move on, guys. We have other news for you. And the next one, guys, is about Ken Hughes press conference. Maybe give us a bit, 1 minute, a resume, a press conference of Ken Hughes from the NHL Combine. The middle of the week, I think it was Thursday. Could be wrong. But give us a bit more information. What you did get out of this press conference, Marko?
Yeah, it wasn't super long, but as always, it's always interesting to get to read and try to read in between the lines and see kind of what they're thinking. So obviously, they're really focused right now on the entry draft and the combine, which is what you would be expecting at this point. Some of the things I guess that we learned, interestingly, is that there was some discussions with Winnipeg around PLD. I'm sure I don't know, Coach, if you have that as a topic later, but
next
sure
one
we'll delve into that. Okay. So next, yeah. So other than that, he was asked about Carter Hart. I think his response was like, some people interpreted his comment that they weren't ever going to trade for Carter Hart, but his answer, if you listen carefully, was, we're not looking for short-term solutions, right? So to me, Carter Hart is not a short-term solution. So I don't interpret that answer to mean that there's no way they would trade for Carter Hart. I think it's still a possibility. Elliot Friedman has reported that Montreal is one of the teams that's in the mix for Carter Hart, but there's other teams like Toronto, funny enough, that are also in the mix for Carter Hart. So so those are always interesting things to come those are interesting things, like to try to read the tea leaves as to kind of, of course, they can never really talk about players directly that are under contract with other teams. But overall, like he was asked a lot of questions about Michkov. They kind of repeated the same answers that, they have to do their due diligence. They talked, a really interesting question too was about what they value most in a prospect. Is it skill? Like how is it weighed? Do they weigh the character and the engine as much as skill? And at the end of the day, they're all factors, that they look at. But there's nobody that's perfect, right? So really, you're just looking for the best balance of those things. And at the end of the day, if they're not going to draft by need, if everything is equal, if in their perception, if two players are ranked equally in their minds, then of course they would draft a right-hand D instead of a left-hand D. But they're not going to draft based on need. So to me, I was very happy to hear that. If I would have heard something like, "Oh, we need to get bigger," then I would have been a little, okay, like, yes, we need to get bigger, but the draft is not the time to address that. The draft, especially if you're picking number 5, is about picking the player that you think is going to project to be the best player. So I left that press conference as usual, feeling very confident in the Habs being in the competent hands of Kent Hughes. I think he knows what he's doing. I feel good about it. Nothing changed.
And after maybe pick it up what you think, or maybe one comment for what you think about Kent Hughes about that conference.
Well, as always, what stands out is his honesty. As much as he's allowed to not jeopardize the development of the team, right? Like he's a very good poker player, but he doesn't. I think he's as open as he possibly can with the questions that are asked to him. The one thing I kind of got from it, I'm not so sure that if Michkov is available at number 5, that he's going to go that route. That I don't know why or what kind of gave it away. Maybe it was just body language, but I mean, I would do it if I were in that position. But it looks like he might not be leaning in that direction. At least that's my opinion in terms of what I saw there when he answered that part. With the Carter Hart situation, I think I read just the other day that I think this deal would have been done. I'm not saying with Montreal, but for Philadelphia with some team. But I think a lot of teams right now are very hesitant because if you recall, they're still doing that investigation from the 2018 Olympic or juniors, and he's part of that team. And so I don't think before anybody invests 8 years at whatever X amount of money, that they want to make sure that this doesn't come back to backfire on them in the future and put them in a very precarious situation.
That's a good.
Yeah, it was short, the conference with Hughes. I think they know what they're doing. I have trust in them. And whatever they do, you can rest assured it'll be for the best of the team.
Well said. I don't want to add any more about this. I want to mention for Team Canada, the only player really is in the trouble is Alex Fermenton. So that's maybe the only one really. Then the other player cannot participate to international or represent Team Canada, whatever you want to call it. So that's the reason he didn't get any contract from Edmonton this season from the Ottawa Senator and for the rest of the team. This week, I do update the news every single day, and some app rumor, and I consider talking this way, and I think I have a lot of viewers this week. Was pretty good. But one thing I talk is about Pierre-Luc Dubois rumor, yes or no. Yes or no. 50-50, 60-40, 55-45 people, yes. Some people say no. Some, follow the channel. They're all about Pierre-Luc Dubois. They believe this is the best star for the Montreal Canadiens, become the best player, deserve $9 million. And some, they don't want to give him $9 million. They don't expect him to represent $9 million. And then you have all the, fun subject about Pierre-Luc Dubois. So, but for both of you, give us a little bit more, 1-2 minutes, what do you think about Pierre-Luc Dubois with Montreal Canadiens, for what you heard during the week, and what it would be for the Montreal Canadiens if you can use what you will do for Pierre-Luc Dubois. So let's go with ENORTAP on that one at the beginning.
Man, we're going to beat this Pierre-Luc Dubois thing to death, I think, and we're seeing it also in the French media as well. Look, is he a unicorn in some senses? Yes, he is. Like, he's got size. He's your typical power forward. He can score if he puts his mind to it. There's very few that can stop him in the NHL. I just think right now there's too many flags out there. I'm not referring to the fact that it came out this week that he named a few other teams and he's looking for $9 million. I think that's all posturing, and it's more done by his agent, Brisson, Pat Brisson. That's a yeah. I think that I mean, it would have been naive of them to just say, "Hey, guess what? We just want Montreal," because it puts all the power in Montreal's hands and out of any other team that's trying to create a bidding war for him. So that doesn't surprise me, and I don't hold that necessarily against them, because I don't think it's his idea in the first place. I think that's more his agent. What worries me is the lack of consistency that sometimes we see in his play. What happens when maybe the first couple of years they're not as successful as they might turn out to be? Is he going to demand another trade? The argument's been made that if he really loves to play here, then he'll take a cut. He'll play for Montreal at a lesser amount. So I think if you can get him, and the maximum I'd be willing to go is probably 7.5. And I think that's being generous, given that he's not a point per game man, at least not yet. The stats are there. Like, how can you argue this otherwise when other people are getting, less money for doing that kind of stuff? So if they could possibly get him at that amount, then I'd entertain it. Otherwise, I'd say, you know what? There's going to be other players, either through the draft, free agency, trades. There's so many different avenues to explore. It's not like we're chasing, McDavid here, or we're chasing Bedard or somebody of that kind. So yeah, let it go. Let it go if he really truly wants $9 million.
Great comments, Marco. Before we ask you this question, what would be the cost of Pierre-Luc Dubois and return for the Montreal Canadiens to the Winnipeg Jets, and then you can consist the subject after that. But we're just curious if you think you have specific player that was mentioned during the week.
Well, I think that's the problem, Coach. And I've watched your videos this week, and I've been saying this from the beginning. Is why is there a cost? Why not just wait a year? Especially if Dubois is not good. If he really wants to play in Montreal, then they can trade him wherever he wants. But I don't think other teams are really going to trade for him because they know that he wants to play in Montreal. If that's the case, now, yes, they have put in some other teams in the mix. I believe Minnesota is one of the teams that he said that he would go to. Maybe there's a couple others, but so to start off with your question, in terms of if Hughes decides that he wants to trade something, then obviously there has to be money coming back out. So I think Dvorak would be a smart play for Winnipeg. Like, they need a center, so that makes sense to me. Then to me, again, because Winnipeg has no leverage. So if I'm Kent Hughes, the most I'm giving up is Dvorak, maybe my second round pick, maybe. And, one of those left-hand D prospects like a Norlinder, somebody like that, right? So that's pretty much all I'm willing to give up. That's it. Like, I'm not giving up anything more than that. Even that's too much, right? But
yeah, I agree. It's too much. I mean, Montreal has all the cards here. Winnipeg has absolutely zero leverage. At this point, if they were to say, we'll give you Dvorak for him, they should almost, hum and hesitate and then say, okay, we're getting something, and go for it.
But so again, it's all on how the agent is playing it, right? So if Montreal does want the player, then Brisson is going to, try to kind of like play things a little bit, and Winnipeg's going to want them to do that, right? So if is another team that's in on it, then if you want to have the best bid, then you're probably going to overpay a little bit. But that's what I'm saying. Like, worst case, that to me, that would be the biggest overpay that I would do. In terms of his number, I agree with you guys. Like, let's not forget, like, I know nobody's really high on Slafkovsky right now, right? But he's a freaking number 1 overall pick, right? You've got Gooley coming. Now you have Doc locked in for a good number here, but if Doc continues to progress this way, he's going to be a lot more expensive. Then we have a 5th round draft pick here that in 3 years is if he turns out to be a good player. So there's going to be some questions here, right? Like, there's only yes, the cap is going to go up, but to me, the biggest concern for Pierre-Luc Dubois is, I call it the Tavares factor, right? I'm just concerned that it's going to be another Tavares. He's not that much older than Suzuki and Caufield. I think he's only 2 years older. So it's not like he's completely out of the same window as Caufield and Suzuki. But I just feel that, I just get the sense that if we go too high with him, I think, again, 7.5 is probably the highest that I would go. I'm just concerned what that leaves on the table for some of these young players. Like, Gooley is going to get paid. Slafkovsky is going to get paid. If Mailloux turns out to be what we think he's going to be, he's going to get paid. What about Hudson? Like, there's got to be room to grow in these guys eventually. So last thing I'll say about Dubois, I'm not 100% sure he's really a center, to be honest. Like, I see him, like you were saying, we're missing a winger. Yeah, he'd be great on the wing with Suzuki and Caufield. It's like a prototype. He's what I hope Slafkovsky will turn into, right? Like, somebody who's good on the boards, big body, go to the net, create little give and go plays around the net. To me, that's what Slafkovsky is going to be. So if Montreal really wants to fast forward their rebuild, and I know, Coach, you don't want them to. You were talking yesterday how you'd like them to pick in the top 6 again next year. But to me, Pierre-Luc Dubois is kind of like what the Rangers did when they signed Panarin, right? I'm not comparing him to Panarin, but it's kind of fast forwarding their rebuild a little bit. So will Pierre-Luc Dubois look really good with Suzuki and Caufield? Absolutely. I think he would be a great fit on that line. But again, for how much and what are you giving in return? Don't expect him to be an elite center. I don't think he is. His face-off percentage is probably even slightly worse than Suzuki. So
well said about this. The trade is going to be Josh Anderson and Christian Dvorak for Pierre-Luc Dubois and the defenseman Enola in return. So that's what the last conversation Elias Friedman about that. And the reason behind that is because now they open up $10 million on the salary cap for the Montreal Canadiens. So they have enough money right now to pay Pierre-Luc Dubois whatever he asks, 7.8 or whatever, $8 or $9 million. So that would be the way what the Montreal Canadiens can open up.
I thought I was overpaying ENORTAP. You thought I was overpaying. Anderson
exactly.
Anderson to me is like we debated this a lot last year, Coach, but I think Anderson still has a lot of value on the marketplace. I don't think you do that as a throw-in for a guy that's where you have a lot of leverage. Like, keep that bullet in your pants there. Holy cow!
The second thing I would say to you, ENORTAP, I think I disagree when you said now Montreal have all the leverage. I'll be honest with you, Pierre-Luc Dubois stop all the leverage they have before. Because the way he mentioned, the way now the Montreal have no choice. They have to trade for him right now. Before that, they could wait one more year and complete his year as a RFA with the Winnipeg Jet and then become a UFA and then open up the door for the Montreal Canadiens. Now, Montreal have to make a move if they want Pierre-Luc Dubois. And this is a bad news for the Montreal Canadiens. They have to pay something in return and then push exactly what Marco said, the rebuilding quicker. And I think Montreal Canadiens should wait one more year. Stay down, stay at the bottom 10, try to go lower, get a Elzenman, a Celebrini, and we have a lot of great defensemen in 2024 draft. I know it's painful watching under the year, but I will limit the move on Montreal Canadiens, and that will be my only suggestion for Ken Hughes. Don't spend anything for Pierre-Luc Dubois. And you know what? He's not the top 20 best player in NHL. If he was,
No.
that's a subject for another time. But he's not, and that's what the problem happened with Toronto Maple Leafs. When you think about when they pay Tavares $7 million, and then they have Matthews behind, then they have Marner coming for the table, they have no leverage for Kyle Dubois to negotiate very well. What happened with Ken Hughes' experience as an agent? He sat down with Caufield and Brisson. They found a way to put now the money under. So I think I'm not worried about Pierre-Luc Dubois contract with Montreal. I think Ken Hughes, with experience-wise, he's going to drop him lower. I believe he can be. For me, it's more about maybe we're not ready yet to get a player like him one more year earlier and push that rebuilding quicker, because I would prefer wait one more year as the NHL draft. But we'll see what's happening for that one. A lot of people in the chat, the H, welcome back in the house. Thanks so much. Great comment for Henry Rabinoff. We appreciate a lot for your comments. Talking about we're going back again. You see press conference Ken Hughes this week. You hear a couple of comments around the league during the week. San Jose Sharks, Columbus Blue Jackets starting talking about the NHL draft pick. And then I want to come back because now you see the NHL combine, so you learn a bit more about the players. So I will have that question again. I'm going to consider asking the question, who is going to be the pick number 5 on the board if it's still Michkov number 5? Are you thinking about under the picks filler? When I said that, Smith is going to be out, Fantilli will be out, and Carlson will be out. You have some kind of the roller coaster at some point, but I think the key is San Jose Sharks. I'm number 4 for Michkov. It looked like now Mike said, the Greg for the general manager, so he said he's looking now more for Will Smith. If Will Smith get out number 3 by Columbus, can he go with Leo Carlson? I think so. But again, what it would be the suggestion, if you come number 5, and we know all agree here, if it's Smith, we take Smith. If it's Carlson, we take Carlson. But if it's Michkov number 5, what do? Do you pass? If yes, you pass. Which player are you looking for to get drafted by the Montreal Canadiens for what you heard during the week? So that's, I think, is a great question for you guys.
I'll go first.
Okay, sure.
Well,
sure.
Is the question, though, who I would take or who I think Montreal is going to take?
Montreal would take. You take the feeling what you gain with Montreal Canadiens, and then you can tell us what you think you should take. P4 as you.
Yeah. So my opinion, like I've said many times, is you have to take the best player possible. So it's widely the consensus that Michkov is the second best player in this entire draft. So you take him, and then you worry about all that other shit later. That's my own philosophy, but what I think will happen is I'm pretty confident that they're going to select Ryan Leonard if Smith is not there. That's my strong belief. I think he fits the mold of kind of, even though they're saying they're not drafting for need, you've heard, like, if you look at the videos last year, you heard he told Chris Nyland directly, Knuckles, we need to get bigger. That's why they took Slavkovsky, right? So you know that even though they say publicly that they don't draft on need, you know they want to get bigger. Ryan Leonard is not huge. I think he's like 5'11", but he plays big, and he's got an amazing motor. He can finish. So to me, he's the prototype kind of player that I think would fit with what they're building, and he's a hell of a player. So that's my guess as to who they would draft if the, like, to me, I think it's for sure that Columbus is going to draft Carlson. So, you know, it really depends, like you said, Coach, what San Jose does. So if Michkov is there, I want them to take him, and we can get bigger later, but I suspect that they'll take Leonard.
Great comments, Mr. ENORTAP.
Yeah, I agree, Marco. If it's up to me, like I said earlier in the show, and Michkov is there, I would take him. But I'm getting the impression that's not the direction they're going to go. And there's been a lot of conversation and talk around Ryan Leonard, and I think that this is the way they'll go. He's not a huge player. I mean, he plays the wing. He's also played center. He's about 5'11", 6 around there, about 190 pounds. And in most circles, he's been nicknamed the third Kachuk, and that tells you a lot in terms of his tenacity and and his willingness to get into plays and make things happen. You know, not a bad selection. The fact that he's also from, the American Hockey League, it makes it easier. I think they have experience with some of these players like Smith, and Hughes has been in contact with them or has seen them in play many, many times. So he knows exactly what he's getting out of these players. And I think that that's why I don't think they'll go with Michkov. They're going to probably go with the certainty of what they have over the uncertainty of what could be. And I don't know if that's the greatest of moves, because sometimes you do have to try to swing for that home
Absolutely.
run. But
Yeah.
I don't know. It's easier for us to play Monday night quarterback after and say, I can't believe he did this, after they do what they do. But I think that's the direction it's going. I agree with you, Marco.
Well said. We'll see what's happening. Right now,
But we didn't get your coach. We didn't get your opinion there, Coach. Who did
I
number
ran
5?
Leonard all the way. I would skip Mishkov now for multiple reasons, but I would go with Leonard. I think they can develop him. He could be. I understand it's not about the draft. You build your roster construction there, but I think he will fit for the future for Montreal Canadiens. And the future, I think, will be a good asset for that. Gary Conway is in the house. Another Gary is in the house. And then we have Francois Pitre and Mr. Crux is in the house. Before we move on, guys, now we knew we'll pick Smith and Leonard unless they move up with their pick. Yes, Gary, if Smith is still there or Leonard, you're absolutely right, Gary. Leonard seems to fit with the HABS rebuild with talent need that and playoff. Gary Connery, welcome back. And we know a guy like Leonard can deal with the pressure in Montreal. Smith, I'm not sure about him. I'm sure Fantilli would be gone as number 5, but that would be a great pickup for the Montreal if he was still there. Well said, Mr. Woolley. Let's move on. We talked about top 6 earlier. And nobody knew was my next question for you guys, but we're missing a top 6 forward. And if it's the case, would you like to sign Monahan back with the Montreal Canadiens? If yes, what would be the top money you want to put on him for Sean Monahan?
Look, having Monahan back, I think we saw this year. It's with the exception of his injury, and that's a big obstacle to overlook, or to try to overlook. He does wonders for the team. I mean, he's definitely still has the talent. I think he'd be great for the younger players to help them develop properly, and he can play up and down the line at any position or any line that's needed. And he helps the power play. I mean, those are all positives. And I think if you can get him and maybe trade him at trade deadline time and pick up I don't know. I don't know if you'll get a first, but you'll come close to it if not, depending on the team that you're dealing with, right? I think it would be beneficial. How much would you get him for? I would not exceed, at this point, maybe 3 million. That would be my cap on him. I don't know if he's willing to go that route, because I'm sure he'll probably get more on the market.
Mr. Marco.
I don't think it'll happen, to be honest. Like, if I'm Monahan, at this stage of my career, I'm going to somewhere where I think I can win, right? Like, I think he wants to win. He's never won really before. So, he like most players, he'll say, I love my time. Like, I'm sure he did like his time in Montreal. I'm sure if this was 2 years from now and they were kind of better positioned, I think it would be more attractive to him. I know coach would be very upset, because, if he plays, if they sign Monahan and he plays, then that makes him a lot more competitive. But like coach on that point, like, I think Hughes is pretty clear. Like, he's expecting the team to take a step this year, not to make the playoffs, but he expects that they're going to be much better. Right. So I would be surprised if they did it. If they do, then I hope it's not for more than 3.5 as well. And certainly not long term. right? But if you're Monahan, like we were talking about this with Suzuki, with Caufield's contract, right? It's always the question of, do I bet on myself or do I go with the safe thing, right? So if he wants to bet on himself, then he takes just a 1-year deal with somewhere where he'll be able to showcase his skills. And, going to a team like Montreal, I think would be a great fit for him in terms of showcasing his skills, because he's definitely going to get into a top 6. He's going to get power play, all those things, right? So if he's willing to play the long game and bet on himself, Montreal is the ideal place. If I'm his agent, though, and I've seen kind of what's happened to him in the last little while, I'm like, don't do that. Please don't do that. If you can find a 3-year contract with the team, and get a little bit more term, do that, because we don't know what's going to happen with your body. So I would be surprised if the agent really, but hey, Monahan, it seems like a stubborn guy, right? Like he's the one that wanted to play with a freaking broken foot just so that he can play in front of his old fans, right? So who knows, man? But if I was his agent, I would definitely be advising him to take the longest deal you can with an established team where you can have a shot to win. Even if you can't play the whole season, you can come back in the playoffs and have a shot to have a role on a good team, make a run or two. That's what would be my advice to him. If Hughes does it, though, he better not spend a lot of money, because like I said, I'm concerned. We have Gouli coming up. We're going to have this 5th round draft pick coming up. If they sign Dubois and him, I'm going to shit my pants. Like that would be the worst thing that could happen.
Maybe Hoffman too.
Yeah, extend Hoffman for another 4 years. That's
for me, I would sign him in case what happening is if you trade Devorak, you have a guy with experience. I think Monahan could be with Montreal Canadiens if he develop like he could be at $3 million for the future. At 30 years old, I think it could be a very good security for the Montreal short term if ever the turnaround. I don't know any team like Colorado, Minnesota, team listing a center are willing to give him $4 million per year without knowing his injuries, without knowing if he's going to performing, everything like that. And his time limit will be maybe third line at some location, maybe only Minnesota. But again, Minnesota are still willing to give him. So that's the only thing I was concerned that if I'm Monahan, I would stay in Montreal for 6 months
1 year
at the beginning and see what happened after that. But that will be something I think Montreal, if they're thinking to trade Devorak and Pierre-Luc Dubois not coming, I will go for 1 year and go from there. You need a top 6 anyway. And he's been there, Martin Saint-Louis, the core, everything. So why to let him go? I'm not sure. That would be my only option for Monahan.
If you're Monahan, do you really want to, like, he has a family, right? Like, does he really want to sign somewhere and then get traded at the deadline? Like, you don't want any part of that. Like, it's very disruptive. Like, I get that I know I just said that it would be a smart move for him for his career because he can showcase his skills and everything, but let's not forget, like, the family has a huge part to play.
Yeah, but again, Marco, see, if you go to Minnesota, give him only 1 year.
Mm-hmm.
If you go to other team, they don't give him 2 years contract. Which team is going to give him a 2-year contract at $3 million without knowing if he can performing or not?
I think there'll be some.
That's true.
I think there'll be some teams willing to.
Yeah, I could see maybe a 2-year. Somebody that really is in need of a centerman, they'll do that for 2 years, but it won't be for more than 3.5.
Yeah, will be interesting what happening about this for Monahan. Let's move on about this one over there. I have a lot of things to talk about, but it's already 10:57.
I can go over, Coach. I'm not in a rush. So if we go over a little bit, it's all good.
Yeah.
I know about ENORTAP.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm good.
About this, I will quickly this one very quickly. 1 minute for each of you. Starting with ENORTAP. What do you expect from Hugo in the next couple of weeks until the UFA? So maybe what do you expect? Any trade at the trade deadline? Do you the trade deadline at the NHL Draft? Do you expect Montreal move up? Do you expect anything, or you say now they're going to be not much? You maybe trade for specific players. I don't know. What do you expect Hugo? He can. Which direction you expect he's going to do, and then and Marko after that.
Yeah, the problem is there's a lot of moving pieces, right? And so it's hard to pinpoint exactly what a plan of attack he's going to take. But all things being the same, I saw your video, coach, as well, that you made with regards to a possible trade with Columbus, and I even read the article that D'Amico put out about that as well. To me, it makes sense. Columbus picked up Severinson and also Provorov, two right defensemen. Now that puts them in a position where they have, I think, 4 or 5 right-handed defensemen. And guess what? Montreal has a need for a right-handed defenseman. So I wouldn't be surprised if something along those lines develops. And the player I'm looking at is one of two. I know you mentioned either Andrew Peaky or Adam Boquist. I would say Adam Boquist is more viable, but I would also look at somebody like Corson Ceulemans that they have. Both of them fit the plan that they have in terms of age and money wise. They both are relatively big players that would fit well. Boquist can move the puck very well. Ceulemans is only 20 years old. He's 6'2". He's 200 pounds. He's also a former first rounder. I think he was picked in the 20s or something. So one of those two could make their way over. What it does is it creates cap space for Columbus to go after a centerman, because I think right now they're close to about $6 million that they have in cap space. So if they can get rid of somebody like Adam Boquist, who's making, I think, 2.5 million, 2.6, it really opens the door for a good centerman that might be a UFA coming up soon. And I think that's the direction they want to go. And Montreal could definitely use somebody like Boquist or Ceulemans.
Yeah, only as I was said to you about this, Coleman, the problem with him is on an entry-level contract, so but Columbus is not going to trade any prospect they have. They want to have better leverage on the salary cap, so they try to trade. That's the reason pick, or they are more similar contract, both of them with Bovis. So, Marco?
Well, listen, coach, if Boquist is available, then you try to do that all day, right? Like that's, to me, he would be a great complement to kind of the hulking, big, left-handed D that we have. Like whether you play him with Jack-Eye or with Gouli or with whoever, he would be a great complement with one of those guys. So depending what the price is, then I'd be all over that. I've always been a huge Boquist fan. I think he was drafted 6th overall, if I'm not mistaken, by Chicago back in the day.
Number 8.
Number 8.
Yeah. 8, right after Quinn Hughes.
Yeah. So I've always liked him. So that would be good. What I'm looking for from Hugo, I've talked about this a couple times here, is I feel that we're getting to the point where we have too many assets. There's only so many contracts that are available. I want Montreal to try to liquidate some of the assets that we have and try to really, really land an elite level talent, a younger one, right? Like, so very similar to kind of what they did with Doc last year. I want to see Hugo take excess, something that we have a surplus of, and try to fill a need. That's, to me, the biggest thing. So, and you look at our biggest need, it's elite talent, right? So if there's any way for them to move up in the draft by doing that, then of course you try to do that. And not necessarily I don't think they're going to be able to move up past 5th, but if they can somehow move and get like something, now it's going to be very competitive because there's Nashville and a whole bunch of other teams that are looking to trade their first round pick, so it's going to be tricky. But if there's a way for Montreal to use some of these assets, whether it's Massar or like one of the picks or something else, I want to see Hughes try to hone in on kind of what they really need, whether it's a goaltender, whether it's a right-hand D, whether it's an elite winger. Those are kind of the things that we really need now. So that's what I'd like to see them do. Like we've talked about before, Coach, this is like leading up to the free agency, the draft, and all the way up until July 1st, this is the most important time of the season if you're the management team, right? This is where you build your team. This is where you make the biggest mistakes or you hit the biggest home runs. So they better be on top of their game. I was a little disappointed that they missed out. There was some, like, remember we talked about last or a couple weeks ago that LA would be a perfect trading partner for us. So like there's Grands and some other right-handed shot Ds. So I know it's very competitive. One thing I look for them to do as well too is they still can broker trades as well too and weaponize their cap space. So that's something that they might look to do as well.
Yeah, I think move up, it would be the next thing for me. I wouldn't be surprised if you try to trade from 31, 32 to go to 20 to 25, everything like that. And that would be something. I think they're going to keep their, maybe if they don't draft number 30, the goaltender, Robert 37, I would not be surprised at 69, they get the goaltender right there at the time. It could be Augustin or Jacob, the kid from Florida, the goaltender at 69. And I'll be surprised they try to get another pick between 45 to 60 at some point, because the depth of the second round pick is really impressive. So there'll be two options for the Montreal Canadiens. I don't expect them to move from 5 to 3 to 4. Both teams there, they're not going to go down. I don't see that for at that moment. So again, that's what we expect from Hugo about that. And it was my next question, so we're going to skip that one. It was, do you think Montreal going to move up? So we're going to get that one there for sure. And the goalie situation, and I'm talking about this already for 2 minutes on that one there. Do you think, because if they keep Jake Allen and Samuel Montembeault, and we know earlier we talked about Carter Hart and some many goaltenders now around the league. They are going to get another year of carousel with many UFA like Varlamov, Treasure. You have Anderson, Ranta. I can go all the way like this. And then now when Montreal Canadiens are definitely going to lose Caden Primo as on the waiver at some point in October. What the Montreal Canadiens should do? Do you expect them? They will maybe trade Jake Allen. His value is still good. Not say great, but good enough to make a trade as a backup number 2 at $3.8 million, example. And then in return, they're going to get maybe a goaltender. I don't have no clue right now as a UFA, or to give a chance to give Primo, or maybe pick up like Matt Murray, example. And then they can send him on an American Accolade to keep Caden Primo. How do you feel about that? Or do you say, no, let go Primo on the waiver, and now they're going to have only one goaltender and Laval Torbes?
Coach, I love Jake Allen as a person, but he served like a really good purpose last year, stabilizing things in the dressing room and all that. But I think Montembeault is ready to kind of be stable by himself. Like, I don't think he really needs him there for that anymore. I think it was a mistake extending Allen when they did. It seemed like a little premature and a bit of a panic move at the time. So that would definitely be my preference, is that they move Allen, but you're definitely not going to get a lot. Like, he's a sub 900 save percentage goalie. So if somebody's looking for a backup, it's just unfortunately not a lot of teams. The cap doesn't allow for, how much is he making? 3.5?
3.8.
Yeah. That's pretty expensive for a backup. So you might have to be willing to sweeten the pot for someone to take Jake Allen, to be honest, because everybody in the NHL knows that he's not going to be your starter. Maybe for 10 games, if your starter is hurt, he can hold the team for a little while. But I think the book on Jake Allen is well known across the NHL. Everybody knows these players. There's no secrets, right? So nobody's going to trade for Jake Allen to be their number one goaltender. And if they do, then maybe we should apply for their job. But so with that being known, they're probably only going to want him for a backup. $4 million for a backup is a lot. So you might have to hold something back, or you're going to have to sweeten the pot. But to me, it's necessary. I think you want to see what Montembeault can kind of do standing on his own 2 feet here, like a little bit. And then why do you want to lose Primo for nothing? Like we're not, obviously he hasn't shown that he's a starter in the NHL yet, but I don't think you throw in the towel quite yet. Like, goalies really start to mature around 24 years old, like a Montembeault, right? So to me, you don't throw in the towel on Primo. And who knows what they're going to do? Like, hopefully they don't get somebody like Varlamov or something like. I've been pretty public with it. I would love it if they would trade for Carter Hart, depending what the price is. But if they don't do that, I still think that they're fine for next year with Primo and with Montembeault.
Great comments, Marco ENORTAP.
Yeah, I think the succession is there, Coach. I think Allen's the one that will end up leaving. Question is when? Do you do it at the beginning or do you do it closer to trade deadline time, right? You have to bring in, it fits nicely because you'll get some kind of asset for Allen, whatever that might be, given how he's performing. If you do it right now, it's not going to be very high. But Primo should be the backup right now on this team. Montreal will draft a goalie this year, so that'll address the situation there.
In 5
and
years,
you have to
only in 4 or 5 years will it address it, though.
Oh no, I'm referring to Laval. It'll address the situation there because they really only have one other goaltender there, and you can't bank on that alone. An injury could really put them
Be right back
behind the 8 ball. So I think what's important is we know that somebody like Monty needs more time. That's part of his concurrent development. So if he's now forced to play, 55, 60s, even 65 games, it puts him in the perfect situation. It doesn't put a lot of pressure on Primo as the backup. And it also gives you a window to see Primo perform for, let's say, 20 games at the NHL level on a consistent basis to see if he can handle it. If he can't, then they're going to have to go probably a free agency route.
Yeah. We had a great comments in the chat. I'm reading everybody in the chat. That's pretty good. A lot of stuff. There's a few people pop up here. Say, welcome back in the house. Nicolas de Gobi-Bonneau. Mr. G from Alaska is in the house. Thanks so much, everybody, to be back. Consider have a great conversation about goalie. I think there was a great subject about that one there. And that will be interesting. A lot of rookies, François Pitt and the NHL Draft. Yes, they have a few of them. Carey Price is going to return in Vancouver, so we're not going to talk about this, but I just want to let you know about that news over there. But I want to finish the show, guys, about the Stanley Cup Final at Vegas against the Panthers. And what do you think happening? Because possible today is the last show of the BRUNCH. Why? Because I think guys going to make another BRUNCH for the special draft NHL, so the day before, something like that. So I think it would be better if you mind Marco and ENORTAP. So next week, anyway, we had no show. So I think we're going to go that direction for our BRUNCH. So I think the Stanley Cup will be done this week at some point. So I would like to tell us what do you think about what's happening for that series between the Florida Panthers and Vegas Golden Knights.
Go ahead.
ENORTAP.
Okay. I'll go first on that. It's unfortunate that we didn't see a fully healthy Florida team because I think some of the results would have been different. Like I really think we underestimate, and I know both teams have injuries to some degree, and some are playing through them. That's without say. But not having Listerainen on that team and having an injured Gudis that's playing. It's really put them out of their element because their identity was to forecheck, and have the players at the right positions. And right now, that's caused quite an influx of players on the first 2 and 3 lines. Players that are not accustomed to playing that high up are doing so, and it's you can only ask Bobrovsky to hold you in games so long before before it falls apart. But I mean, kudos to obviously to Vegas, because I think that they have played a very, very disciplined game so far. They've been rolling their lines pretty much evenly, and they've been getting every single night. It's a different person that gives them the production. You know, one night it's Marchessault, another night it's Stone or Eichel. You know, we saw Carlson. You know, is Stevenson yesterday with 2 goals. Like, they're getting the production from different players. And I think Florida right now is in a position that they're relying on 1 or 2 individuals to get those goals. And it's, if they're well checked, they're not going to go very far. And I think Hill's doing a decent enough job that's not going to allow them to falter at this point. I think last night's game was absolutely critical for Florida. And unfortunately, it didn't land on their side.
Marco?
Yeah, like, listen, like, it's you look at Florida since December, right? And there's times where Barkov wasn't there. Like, it's not like they were healthy a lot of this year too, right? So you have to give them a lot of credit clawing their way here. But, you know, I've said it before, right? Like, what I think most years, like, the Cinderella team that makes it to, you know, to the final usually turns back into a pumpkin when they get to the final. Like Montreal a couple of years ago, Dallas is like that. Really, the only 8th place team I think to ever win the cup was Los Angeles, and they were, you know, they're by no means an 8th place team. Like, I think they had a lot of injuries that year, and I think they'd won the cup the year before that, but they just kind of made it in and then were totally dominant in the playoffs. But this is not uncommon. You see a team just kind of grind their way there. But, you know, the thing with Florida is that I don't think they expected that this was going to happen this year, right? Like, I think Bill Zito made these moves, the Huberdeau and the Uyghur move, knowing that his team might even take a step back this year. But he wanted to change the makeup of the team and build it around Tkachuk, right? Because he knew that it was going to be tight on the cap and he wouldn't have enough depth to really be that competitive. So, you know, because you still have like players like Holmqvist that's still on kind of on the payroll and things like that. They're going to clear some cap here, right? So to me, this is like they're playing with like a house money, Florida. You know, like they shouldn't have been there, but they just had the magical thing that happens with when a team gets on a roll, and they just knew how to fight. They had to fight to get in, and they just carried that on to the playoffs. So good for them. But with Tkachuk playing with one arm, basically, they don't have enough guys to score goals anymore. Like Reinhardt is, you know, shooting blanks out there. You know, Barkov finally scored. Bennett as well. So yeah, like they just don't have enough scoring depth, you know, right now to really compete with Vegas. Like, you know, Tkachuk was just really carrying the offense there, right? Like you have Nick Cousins. Like, guys, we remember Nick Cousins, right? Like he used to play for the Habs. Great player, like great role player, but he's playing like top 6 minutes for them, right? And he's been good.
Can't do that.
But yeah, like it's just not going to get it done, right? Like, but listen, like it's one of those things, you know, like just intangible things. Like a team gets together and something magical happens, and that's what Florida's been. So kudos to them. But you know, Vegas just has too much depth. You know, the question now for Vegas is who wins the Conn Smythe. Like it's just so hard to choose somebody. Like it's really, you could argue, you can make a case for like 5 to 6 players from Vegas to win, to be honest. Everybody from, you know, obviously Eichel to, you know, even people are talking about Pietrangelo now. He's played a lot of minutes. Maybe that's a sneaky pick because it's hard to choose between the forwards. And then, of course, Marchessault is right there. Hill, I don't know. I don't know if you can really choose Hill. Like, he's been great, but he didn't start the playoffs.
Carlson.
You know, like one was Carlson right there, too. So it's going to be, oh, wow. There you go, coach. Nice segue. So, yeah. So, yeah, I think, you know, Vegas will probably take this next game. You know, like, I don't like Tkachuk. I don't know how, you know, good for him gutting it out, but unless they come up with some new medical technology between now and the next game, like I just don't see how he can play more than he'll get out there and he'll play, you know, like his 10 minutes if he can play key situations. But I think Vegas, they've shown that they can be a little nervous in the past, like squeeze the sticks a little bit. But I think they'll be fine. And so I suspect that, in 5 here, they'll wrap this up. Who am I going to choose for the Conn Smythe? I'm going to say Pietrangelo. I'm going to go out. I think it's going to be too tight between the forwards. It's going to be between Eichel or Pietrangelo. That's who I suspect that it would be.
I don't think it's decided yet. It's still a chapter or two to be written in all of this, and that'll have a huge impact. And I would even venture to say that if it could be extended beyond game 5, that you can make a huge argument that it goes to Bobrovsky in a losing.
He's the winner of the
case.
He's the winner.
No, I don't think so.
If he can take him
5, 6, 7, Bobrovsky won that one over there.
Oh, okay. But if it finishes in 5.
No, in
If it
5, I don't
in
see
5.
it. But if he could steal 1 or 2 more games, and even in the losing cause, this guy should steal it. But otherwise, I would say Marchessault for Vegas.
I would be so
but
happy.
Playoff, Bobrovsky or Marchessault?
Well, I think you can make the argument that in the last round against Edmonton, if Marchessault doesn't come up with those 2 key goals in the second or third period against them, Edmonton had the momentum. Like that turned that whole series around. They would not be in the finals if it wasn't for that game.
Bobrovsky, if he's not stopped the big save against Boston, he have a save percentage of 945 at that moment for everything on the situation 5 versus 5 can go there. The number of the stat is all advantage Bobrovsky. Now the advantage of winning a playoff advantage, percentage more for the Vegas Golden Knights. But for me, no close for Vegas. They have too much split players for Vegas. Because if you get to Marchessault, what about Jack Eichel? What about Hill? What about Pietrangelo? What about William Karlsson? Still have like 10 goals, 11 goals, Karlsson. He don't have 11. To be. Pietrangelo play, maybe not score, but he play a silly game over there. I just feel like they just spread over the Vegas Golden Knights, in my opinion.
Aiden Hill, like you're talking about save percentage. Aiden Hill, I think, if I'm not mistaken, has a better save percentage than Bobrovsky.
Yeah, at that moment, yes, he is. But my point for Bobrovsky was about 5 versus 5, and it's funny opportunity about that one. On that playoff, on that series, Hill is in front of Bobrovsky,
I mean, the whole playoffs. I think if you look at their whole numbers for the whole playoffs, I think
he is. Yeah. But again, the impact of Hill compared to what he have, I don't think so, is compared to Bobrovsky in front of him.
Yeah, I'll say if Bobrovsky can take him at least 1 more game, it'll go to him, and I'll still stick to Marchessault. Coach, he's at 24 points. He's tied with Tkachuk for the lead in the playoffs.
Oh yeah.
So I don't know how we can make the argument for him not being in that category.
Oh yeah, no. Marchessault is that for me. If he go Vegas, I would be Marchessault for sure. But I would not be surprised Bobrovsky could win that Conn Smythe.
Yeah, I agree.
So that one over there. So will be really interesting what happening for that for the Stanley Cup Final. And that will be last subject we have on this special edition. We get a little bit over. And this was edition number 36, Marco, if you want to make the count of all the show we did all year long. And unfortunately, because now we want to stop, it's just because next week is Happy Father's Day, so we're going to skip that one. And then after that is the NHL Draft. So we're going to do a special ab brunch during the week. Maybe it's going to be an ab something else at the end of the night. And we're going to be conclude that show until next year. We'll be back in September for the ab brunch for sure. So first of all, we want to thank everybody in the chat. But first, the co-host ENORTAP as a backup host for the rest of the season with us for the special playoff. And then Marco been with me since last year for the beginning of our brunch. So we want to thank Marco for sure. And then we want to thank our chef for the brunch, Luciano Graziano, with all the menu he has for everybody. We want to thank all the moderators for sure, and definitely all the people in the chat. So it was a great year of the Ab Brunch, your Sunday rendezvous. I will let you, both of you, what you expect for the upcoming week, or maybe for the next couple of weeks, maybe for Montreal or NHL. So let's start with Marco on that one.
Well, hey, first, before I say that, Coach, I just want to thank everybody for joining us for our first year of HABS Brunch. It's been a lot of fun doing it. 36 shows, Coach.
Yep.
My favorite number 36 for Montreal, Sergio Monesso, number 36. What I'll be looking out for here is I'll be watching it's always emotional to watch the Stanley Cup get lifted, but then after that, it's all about doing more, analysis of some of these prospects. We're going to be debating about who Montreal is going to be selecting. It's going to be exciting. We're going to be hoping for a draft almost as exciting as last year. Fingers crossed.
Well said, Mr. Marco. What about you, Mr. ENORTAP?
Well, I want to just congratulate the two of you because you did a great job this year with the brunch, and it's definitely an opportunity for everybody to get involved in very meaningful conversation, not just with Montreal, but in what's happening in the entire league. So congratulations, guys, on a very successful year.
One last thing, Coach. We should probably also thank some of the other contributors that we had. Like, we should thank Karine Haynes, who did a lot of shows with us this year. We had Nick join us a lot this year. So thank you for all the contributors that aren't on this show, but that's contributed throughout the year as well.
Now, it was great to mention. I was going to say that, but you said it about this one there, so that's great to hear that for both of you. And we wish you an amazing, great rest of your day, everybody. Don't forget, Ad Nation Live Tonight Show is back tonight on the Sunday evening. I'm going to be back at 9:00 p.m. Until then, my friend, we wish you an amazing, great day. And of course, we want to remind this for both of them because they are.
You are awesome.
Here we go.
You are amazing. You are the best. And remember, you have greatness inside of you.
You have greatness inside of you. Don't forget, be well, be healthy. We not only dominate your day, but fire the way to dominate the first half of what, Mr. ENORTAP?
Year 2023.
He did it again. Have an amazing, great day, baby. Have a great Sunday fun day, everybody.